with good news for so-called Washington outsiders. Donald Trump seeing some stability there. He still remains on top of the Republican field, but the movement is coming from Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina. They are making up some serious ground after last week's debate. Fiorina jumped from 6th to 3rd place, and on the Democratic side, as we mentioned, Joe Biden is doubled to his support from 1 month ago. Bernie Sanders continues to close the gap on frontrunner Hillary Clinton. Well, we want to get more on this with Forbes contributor Carrie Sheffield. What's going on here, Carrie?
Hey, good morning.
The changing dynamic there. So Donald Trump didn't lose any ground in the poll, but certainly there's some other candidates that are catching up.
Yeah, no, and like you said, a lot of it has to do with the debates. So if you look at the debate performance, Trump actually was rated the worst in terms of Republican viewership of the performance. Fiorina trumped Trump by almost double in terms of how people viewed the favorability, the net favorability of her performance. Rubio did well as well, and so you see Rubio bubbling up as well.
Good to point out, while not on the graphic, Rubio also rising in those polls. So why do you think Carly Fiorina's message is working right now? Why was she so successful in that debate?
Well, I think she is an outsider, as you said, but she also just assumed an air of authority. It was clear that she had led numerous calls as a CEO, looking at details. She was very specific. There's been rundowns in terms of looking at who used the most facts, figures, details in terms of the policies, and she was out of the park.
And despite Dr. Carson's Dagen recent comments on Muslims
which has actually helped his fundraising.
It actually helped his fundraising. We're learning yesterday, I guess he commented that he was able to raise more money than ever after he made those comments in a 24-hour period.
People like, in this election so far, they like outlandish comments. They like people who are shooting from the hip. And I wanted to point out that Fiorina, certainly her getting back at Donald Trump helped her. She looked strong and firm and smart, and a smart woman, but it didn't really hurt Trump, I don't think, at least looking at these numbers so far.
He notched up by 1 point in the poll compared to after the
he
first
didn't
debate.
He didn't look bad, but she looked
right.
Great.
It really helped her. I will say, if you look at, so we still got 15 Republicans in this race. If you consolidate and just have the top 5 even, which is still much more than the 3 declared Democrats, so the bottom 10, once you move all those other candidates out of the race, and let's be honest, their money's going to run out, just like Scott Walker's money was running out. If you consolidate to 5, the race is very, very different in terms of the potential of where their support could go.
So with Scott Walker out of the race, Ryan, everybody's trying to decide who might be next to drop out here. As you look at the field, Donald Trump, Ben Carson, Carly Fiorina, Marco Rubio gaining in the polls as well, and there's Senator Ted Cruz. By the way, I go back to Dr. Carson's comments. He said he raised $1 million within 24 hours following the CNN debate, and after his remarks on Muslims and politics, even more in a 24-hour period. At first glance, he was making an estimation. But this is just an unbelievably historic time in the state, as far as the state of politics in this country right now.
Yeah, Carson's comments probably gave him that sort of short-term boost between a group of people in the country that have those particular views. It's probably not going to sustain him through the life of the campaign to make comments like that as the field starts to narrow and as Americans start to get a better look at the candidates and start to narrow their views.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it was an unconstitutional comment that he made to have a religious test. I mean, from my opinion, it's incredibly wrong for him to say that and to suggest that a certain religion shouldn't be allowed to run for office.
Well, and other candidates, including Mike Huckabee, on this very show, when you interviewed him, he said there is no test based on someone's religion whether they can run for the highest office in the land or run for office. But to that point, Jeb Bush came out yesterday in the Wall Street Journal with this very extensive op-ed about the regulations that he's going to cut, that he's going to do away with. And he is such a policy wonk in terms of compared to all the other candidates.
He's like a walking think tank.
That he is. You read the op-ed and it's fascinating, but then you know when he gets on the campaign trail to deliver it, it just won't have the same
it
zazz.
Falls flat. No, I mean the low energy thing from Trump, it's sticking to him, and it looks, and he's not in the top 5 for the polls, even though he's dominating on the money race. And so it's very interesting. People say this is an argument when we're talking about campaign finance reform. We don't. This money influence is not influencing the race. Bernie Sanders has raised almost no money, and he's doing very well.
All right. Well, things continue to get very interesting. And when you mentioned Bernie Sanders, I mean, Joe Biden, what a story there. Hasn't even announced that he's running, and he's still garnering more support as that support builds. The question mark is even bigger now, whether or not he's even going to run.
And you know what's really interesting is that when you look at him outside the race, so Bernie versus Clinton, and then bring in Biden, almost all of the support for Biden comes away from Clinton.
That's exactly what that Fox poll shows.
Yeah,
I like
it's very interesting.
What Rubio's spokesman said following his bump in the polls, which is like, this is so early. There's still probably a lot of very first impressions that are in the polls, and also the numbers are being split by so many different candidates. I mean, Trump has got this big lead, but there's a lot of people that would probably consolidate much more support around.
You're absolutely right. I mean, this time last year, Americans thought that Hillary Clinton, in 2008, that Hillary Clinton would be the president.
Well, 58% think she's lying about her emails, according to the Fox News poll.
Yeah. All right, we're going to have more on politics in just a little bit because there's so much to talk about there.